You're watching Satluj TV News. I'm Angus Scott in London. The term transnational repression has suddenly become a highly significant issue across Western democracies. With the revelation that the Indian government was likely behind the planned assassinations of Khalistan campaigners in Canada, the US and the UK, the US government is now taking direct action to address the issue. Yesterday, the US Senate's Foreign Relations Committee met to discuss the issue in detail and address recommendations that will be sent to the US President as he formulates the USA's foreign policy going forward, and particularly affecting the nation's relationship with India. Chairman Khalistan, in his opening address, immediately raised the issue.
We've seen disturbing allegations against an Indian government official for involvement in planning to assassinate a US citizen in New York who was critical of the Indian government. This follows allegations of India's involvement in the killing of a Canadian Sikh leader earlier this year. The Modi government had labeled both critics as terrorists.
As a measure of how seriously the US government is now taking the threat from India, a large section of the subsequent discussion was devoted to discussing the vulnerability of the Sikh community to India's covert hit squads. The committee received testimony from several sources, including the Sikh Coalition, who submitted a detailed statement outlining their grave concerns over the safety and civil rights of US-based Sikhs. In the discussion, Michael Abramovitz, president of Freedom House, gave testimony to the committee, pointing out the threat that India currently posed to Sikhs in both the US and Canada.
The Canadian Prime Minister has implicated the government of India in the June murder of a Sikh activist and a Canadian citizen in Canada, and just last week the Department of Justice alleged in an indictment that an Indian national in India was hired by an Indian government official to orchestrate the assassination of a US citizen who is a Sikh activist.
Senator Tim Kaine highlighted that repressive threats were usual with regimes like China and Iran, but the situation was new from a strategic partner like India. Reading out the details of the plot to murder Khalistan campaigner Gurpatwant Singh Pannoon, Kaine highlighted the links to the murder of Najjar in Canada and the evident network of Indian agents now targeting Sikhs for assassination across the world.
And suggested there could be more such work. Quote, "We have so many targets," he told the hired gun, who he didn't know was really an undercover US law enforcement officer. That's the case that has been recently brought in federal court in New York, connecting to the murder of the Sikh activist in the suburb of Toronto. And it is highly, highly disturbing, to say the least. And that quote, "we have so many targets," is something we need to pay very serious attention to.
Referring to the close ties economically and socially with India, Senator Kaine expressed exasperation that a so-called democracy like India could resort to such tactics, more associated with repressive regimes like China and Iran.
But we often say we're the oldest democracy in the world and India is the largest democracy in the world. This is not the behavior of a respectable democracy.
As a result of the committee meeting, recommendations were made then to Congress to strengthen the US response to transnational repression and ensure the nation was equipped with the tools needed to protect citizens like the Sikh community in the future. You've been watching Satluj TV News, and don't forget to click on that subscribe button to make sure you get to see stories as they're broadcast. And of course, if you have any comments or opinions on any of our news stories, you can comment below. Or why not drop us a direct message at message@satlujtv.com. We would love to hear from you. In the meantime, thanks for watching for Satluj TV News. I'm Angus Scott in London.